Hello, you're listening to Storytelling Saga, the podcast that shares stories. I'm your host, Allie, and this week I'm discussing Hercules. And this is another all-time favorite Disney movie of mine, and it's co-directed by Ron Clements and John Musker, who also co-directed my absolute all-time favorite Disney movie, Aladdin. And I remember seeing this movie in theaters. I was really, really young. This was probably maybe one of the first few movies I ever saw in theaters, actually. I don't even remember what the first movie I saw in theaters was. I remember, though, the trailers, the previews for it, and the marketing for it. I distinctly remember with the Fates and the "it's gonna be big," that line being in the trailers, as in, like, them saying the movie's gonna be big. And also with Pain and Panic. If is good. I distinctly remember that in the trailers as well. And this movie just, first and foremost, an absolutely stellar soundtrack, which all of these classic Disney films have. But, of course, with the absolutely perfect, beautiful, gorgeous compositions and scores by Alan Menken. And he's obviously worked on so many Disney films, including The Little Mermaid, Beauty and the Beast, Aladdin, Pocahontas, and many others, but those specifically being part of the Disney Renaissance era, which was from 1989, starting with The Little Mermaid, through 1999 with Tarzan. So those are the movies I myself really grew up on, particularly in the late 90s. So this one, then the following year, 1998, was Mulan, and then 1999 with Tarzan. And this one, it makes me emotional watching this movie. And it's beyond the nostalgia factor of it, because really it's just such a solid story and such lovable characters. And as always, those really timeless themes. And with Hercules, how his I Want song, which is a beautiful song, I Can Go the Distance. I love that song so much. And I love the imagery of it when he's staring out at the sky with the sunset, and how he feels he doesn't belong because with his godlike strength, and everyone sees him as a freak and just being so destructive because he doesn't know how to handle his own strength. And it's just so clever too with Pain and Panic, how they give him that potion, and then he has to drink every last drop, and then that one last drop. So because of that, then he is still technically immortal. So that's just such a great plot element in this story. So that's sad, though, that because those are, even though Zeus and Hera are his birth parents, but him feeling like he doesn't belong there, that he always felt that way, how he tries to fit in. Poor Hercules. It's just, poor Hercules getting picked on by all those people. But they really are such loving parents, because they are his parents. They're the ones who raised him. So this whole time, Zeus and Hera have been watching over him. And obviously, of course, also, it's great with this movie, the exposition of it, how they just explain things throughout the movie. The Muses. We are the Muses, goddesses of the arts and proclaimers of Hercules. Again, another one of those movies you could just quote, obviously. This is another movie I would watch over and over throughout my childhood. My siblings and I loved it, to the point where we would watch it so much that there was a part in our VHS tape where we get kind of fuzzy, how that would happen with VHS tapes. Obviously, kids now don't know, VCRs are long obsolete. That's just hysterical. But I distinctly remember that. But the Muses are great. And speaking of the Muses, actually, we had if you recall, they actually had Hercules-themed plates. It was a collection of maybe half a dozen or so. And we only had the one, and it was of the Muses. So funny. I also had a Meg backpack too, it was a small backpack though, so it wasn't big enough to hold my books or anything like that, but I would bring it to school from time to time with toys in it and things like that. Oh my goodness, so adorable. But this movie, I think they underestimated how much kids would love Phil. Phil's fantastic, of course, voiced by Danny DeVito. It's funny too though, because when watching this, it brings me back, obviously, to childhood, but then sometimes I distinctly remember things that I remembered about this movie, like I thought about this movie in my childhood. For instance, when Phil says 2 words, I am retired, and then you see Hercules counting, it's like, wait, that's 3 words. I remember first seeing this movie as a kid being like, oh, technically he could mean it's 2 words, because I remember that being my little kid self, be like defending that, basically, his 2 words thing. And it's interesting, too, how Meg, she's such a great character, too, voiced by Susan Egan, but she's not a Disney princess. But she's an absolutely fantastic character, playing against the whole thing of a damsel in distress. I'm a damsel, I'm in distress, I can handle it, have a nice day. And I remember as a kid, I always loved the Megara, or my friends call me Meg, at least they would if I had any friends. Oh, and of course, also I gotta mention Phil's song, So You Wanna Be a Hero, Kid? Well, whoop-de-doo. I love that. The whole training montage. And it's hilarious, too, that with Hercules training, wanting to prove himself that he can become a true hero, so then he can reunite with Zeus and become a god. It's so funny with that dummy thing, like it just keeps getting more and more destroyed when he finally rescues it during his training. Also, I gotta mention Pegasus. He is a great animal sidekick too. And he's voiced by Frank Welker, who does all those animal voices. He also voiced Abu, and Hercules, of course, voiced by Tate Donovan. Such great characters. So Hercules, he's a great protagonist. And it's cool, too, how it's based on the Greek mythology of Hercules, which is the Roman name, but it's originally Heracles, son of Zeus. How that's all based on that actual Greek mythology. And then Hades, too, voiced by James Woods. He's a great villain, too, with all the sarcasm of it. Oh, how about a sucker for the little sucker? Like, oh, gosh. And it's so adorable, too. Baby Hercules is so cute. And when he first meets Pegasus, does a little headbutt thing. So then when they reunite, it's like, oh, maybe you're too young to remember Pegasus. And then when they headbutt again, and it's so cute. So Pegasus is so loyal. And what's great about Pegasus, honestly, that I didn't really pay attention to as a kid, I guess, that Pegasus's arc throughout this movie, particularly with Meg, how he's jealous of Meg at first because already Hercules is like smitten with Meg. And so when he does that, like that growl, it's funny how throughout the film, then when they go to Thieves, and on a side note with that, that's hilarious too, how Thieves is just kind of a play on New York City. And I mean, they have that joke, which is just straight up a flasher joke. When the guy opens up his cloak, it's like, hey, you want to buy a sundial? Phil's saying, oh, keep walking. These guys are crazy. These people here are nuts. And also, just on a side note too with Thieves, the fact that the people are saying, oh, we need a professional hero, not an amateur. I mean, you would think they would take any help they can get, being so desolate and run by all of this destruction in their town. But whatever, these snooty people. Gosh, when poor Hercules just wants to prove himself as a hero. But anyway, back to the whole thing with Pegasus, how then when Meg just trying to lure him, saying, oh, Hercules, you gotta save these kids. And then when he puts her on Pegasus, and then she's saying, oh, I don't really like heights. And then Pegasus is like, he like laughs and just goes higher because he doesn't like Meg. And then basically how Pegasus warms up to Meg slowly but surely, to the point then by the end when Meg is about to die, and then Pegasus is rushing back with Hercules, like flapping his wings really hard, trying to get back in time. And then he's all upset. And then, so basically what I'm getting at is that I like the progression of Pegasus going from being jealous and hating Meg to then seeing her as a true friend because Hercules loves her and he's Hercules' noble and trusty best friend, really, as his trusty animal sidekick. So then at the very end, too, with Pegasus and Meg, how they headbutt then how Hercules and him have done. So that's just so cute. So I like that arc with Pegasus. So I think that's an underrated animal sidekick arc. I think that's great. And the whole scene when Hercules has to defeat that monster thing and just keeps slicing all the head. Enough with the head slicing thing. When he just keeps chopping off the heads and keep growing all the heads. And that was done with CGI. And with Pain and Panic, how they were just the ones disguised as the kids. And Hades, though, just trying to be all confident. Boys, it's only halftime. Oh, God. And Hades, too, he's definitely got the rage issue. Always throughout the film, he's bursting into flames. I know! You know! Gosh. With the Fates. The Fates are such interesting characters, too. With their vacant eye sockets, with that one eyeball they're all passing around. Oh, gosh. Past, present, and future. They're so gross. And they're vaguely reminiscent of the witches in Macbeth. But the whole thing with the thread cutting, too, that's, creepy. Like, that was creepy to me as a kid. It's like, oh, just one little, you just snip the thread and then that's it. Another person dies. Oh, gosh. And then obviously when Hercules defeats that monster, then it's the whole montage with Zero to Hero. Bless my soul, Herc was on a roll. Person of the month in every Greek opinion poll. I love that one. That's a great song too. And also it's great too how, an Easter egg in this movie with Scar as the throw rug, which is a direct line from Zazu in The Lion King saying, oh, you make a very handsome throw rug. But it's also great too the fact that Meg, how she really technically is, well, she is a villain working with Hades. And it's an interesting backstory with her too, how she literally sold her soul to the devil to help her boyfriend, to save her boyfriend's life. And then as Hades explains, and then what does he do? He goes off with the next chick he sees or whatever. Poor Meg. So Meg's arc really is great too, how she just is saying how she's sworn off men, but then when she falls in love with Hercules, saying how this one's different, he's generous and kind, he would never hurt me, saying, oh please, he's a guy. Oh gosh. But I absolutely love the whole scene in the garden and it's great too though, with Hercules and Meg when he's saying, oh, I thought I had problems, when he's talking about, in that play about Oedipus, obviously talking about the play Oedipus Rex, which if you are unfamiliar with it, just look it up, because based on really the Oedipus or Oedipal complex by Sigmund Freud. But that's funny, these kind of little things that you don't pick up on as a kid, obviously. So it's just so cute, though, with Hercules and Meg and just their whole conversation when he throws the stone. She's saying, oh, no, it looks better that way. Really, it does. The whole thing is that she's trying to find out one of his weaknesses, and that if she does that, then Hades will give her her freedom. And it's just so fun. It's like, you have a problem with this? And her ankle, he's like, weak ankles. No ruptured discs. It's so funny. And when she's saying it's better to not be like everyone else, everyone's petty and dishonest, and he's saying, everyone's not like that. Yes, they are. You're not like that. How do you know what I'm like? Well, it's just so, because she's been hurt so much. So then really how she's working for Hades, but then she's falling for Hercules, so then she's torn. She doesn't want to hurt him. So then he just gives her the flower. It's just so cute. He gives her a kiss on the cheek. It's so sweet. And then when Phil comes to saying, oh, you're going to be doing all this training, he's angry with him. And then it's just funny, that face Hercules has, that goo-goo, love-struck face, the goo-goo eyes, as Phil says. Phil's so funny, oh gosh. Phil's a little pervy, though, just have to say that. I mean, he is, gosh. I mean, when Hercules meets him, he's just being a peeping Tom on those nymphs. Gosh, come on, Phil. But I do love also, though, on a serious note with Phil, how he is redeemed, because the whole thing, how he's trained all these great heroes, and of course, when he's saying, oh, Achilles, but that one thing with the heel, he gets nicked there once, and then that's it. And his whole dream is that he wants someone he trains to have their picture drawn in the stars, and that they'll say, that's Phil's boy. So that's great, too, that he eventually gets that. But then with Meg, and I love that song. I think I would say definitely as a kid, that was my favorite scene in the movie. It's just a beautiful song. I won't say I'm in love with the muses. If there's a prize for rotten judgment, I guess I already won that. I'm not going to sing, sorry. It's just, I get caught up in it sometimes. It's a beautiful song, though. And then, at least out loud, I won't say I'm in love. It's beautiful. It's like, girl, don't be proud. It's okay, you're in love, when they put the flower back. Oh, it's so sweet. And then when Hades is there to just ruin the mood, but Meg is just saying how she's not going to help him to hurt Hercules, but then he's saying that when she's saying he doesn't have any weaknesses, and he's saying, oh, I think he does, Meg. I truly think he does. And he burns up the flower, so mean. And then, of course, when Phil had seen that conversation, so he's saying, oh no, the poor kid's going to be so broken up by this. So then he was trying to warn him, trying to tell him that she's been working with Hades, even though he doesn't know the full story, though, doesn't know that Meg doesn't want to hurt Hercules. But I remember as kids, we loved the part when Phil just screams at him, she's a fraud. We found that hysterical as kids, my gosh. Even though it's a really serious, tense moment, but as kids we found that hysterical. And it's just really sad then. Then when Phil leaves, saying, oh, you don't believe me? Fine. And then he's saying, I thought you were an all-time champ, not an all-time chump. Aw. And then how quickly Hades is just able to trick Hercules using Meg as the bait, really. How, not have his strength for 24 hours as long as Meg doesn't get hurt. Yeah, it's like, oh, yeah, if she gets hurt, you'll get your strength back. There you go. So we have a deal. It's like, I don't really have time. God, calm down, Hades. Jeez. then all the things with the Titans. That's so funny too with the Titans. It's like a guy, Olympus is that way. My lord, everyone's been captured. I've been captured. He's so funny. And then how quickly Hercules, how he just loses everything with Phil and then with Meg and saying, oh, what a great little actress she is. Like really rubbing salt in the wounds. And then also with Pain and Panic, how it's like, oh, jeepers, mister, you're really strong. And then there's like taunting him, a hero's a zero. Terrible. Gosh, I mean, God, I know they're villains, but I mean, they could tone it down a notch. And then that one Cyclops guy saying, oh, Hercules, wanting to just beat him up, how he would have killed him. So then really how, again with Pegasus, how he puts his difference aside with Meg when she's saying, you have to help me, we have to go find Phil. So, because Pegasus obviously will do anything to help Hercules. So then when Meg and they fly to Phil, Meg and Pegasus, and she's saying, if you don't help him now, Phil, he'll die. And it's just so devastating when Hercules is saying how, you were right, Phil, dreams are for rookies. And he's saying, no, kid, I was wrong. Giving up is for rookies. I'm willing to go the distance. And it's interesting, well, it's cool too, maybe that's not the right word, it's visually compelling too, the fact that Hercules, when he gives up his strength, how then he's paler, and then when Meg saves his life, after he tricks the Cyclops, and that Cyclops falls over the edge, and then when the pillar's falling, and then Meg pushes Hercules out of the way, she's like, Hercules, look out, she saves his life. So then the pillar falls on her, and then when he gets his strength back, because then the deal is broken, because she got hurt, so now he has his strength back. So when he makes the deal with Hades, like, take me in Meg's place. And that whole scene, I remember as a kid being kind of freaked out by it a little, because it's like, oh, it's creepy. He's all of a sudden getting old in that river of death with all of those souls swimming in it, and you see Meg's soul. But it's weird because as a kid, that scene seemed so much longer, but really it's not. It's just like upping the tension, but then he's quick to retrieve Meg's soul, even though poor Meg, as she's on her deathbed then, so then when they're rushing back, but then when she dies, so that's just so devastating. Oh my gosh, it really is. But then when he's able to get Meg's soul back and he just punches Hades, that part's so funny too. That other part too, when Pegasus blows out his hair, it's like, oh, what, is my hair out? So Hercules with his true strength, because as Meg says, people do crazy things when they're in love, and then when he puts her soul back, and then when she's saying, Hercules, how? And he says the same thing. People do crazy things when they're in love. Oh, so sweet, so cute. And then they're about to kiss, and then they go up to the gods, and it's his dream that he always wanted with the great warm welcome. They'll be waiting for him, you know, like in the song. And it's so cute with Hera and with Zeus saying, you can come home. And then when he just looks back and Meg saying, congratulations, Wonder Boy, you'll make one heck of a god. Also, it's so heartbreaking, the line when Meg is dying and she says, are you always this articulate? A callback to when she says that when she first meets him. It's beautiful then when Hercules goes to Meg and he says, Mother, Father, this is what I always dreamed of, but life without Meg would be empty. I want to stay on Earth with her. I finally found where I belong. Oh, it's so beautiful. And when they kiss, it's so cute when she just pulls him closer. It's so cute. Get choked up thinking about it. It's so, it's happy tears, but it always makes me emotional. It's because it's so sweet. And it really is the true measure of a hero, as Zeus says, that a true hero isn't measured by his strength, but the strength of his heart. Oh, it's so sweet. And then with the ending song, A Star Is Born. Oh, it's so like joyous. And then when Phil's dream comes true with the picture of Hercules and the stars, and then the guy saying, that's Phil's boy. And he gets teary-eyed. It's just so cute. Oh my gosh. So it's a beautiful film. Oh my God, it's an incredible film. Just a wonderful Disney movie. And again, one of my all-time favorites. And with that is going to conclude this week's episode of Storytelling Saga. You can follow the podcast on Facebook and Instagram at Storytelling Saga, as well as on Twitter at Storytell Saga. You can also send me any questions, comments, or writing prompts by leaving me a message in the contact section of storytellingsaga.com or by sending me an email at storytellingsaga@gmail.com. Next week, I am McLovin. I'll be discussing Superbad. Until then, thank you for listening, and remember, write what you love.